What do the duck and a bicycle have in common? They've got wheels, except the duck.
Canon EOS RP is the latest release from Canon as of February 2019, and it's the smallest full-frame sensor camera from Canon and possible on the market at this point. It weighs only 485 grams. It is mirrorless, which the mirrorless cameras are taking over the DSLR market at this point in time. Mirrorless means lighter, faster, no shutter mirror, and no real click sound. So the clickety clack you're hearing, it's a fake click. Canon has included a 26 megapixels in this body. This sensor is almost identical with the Canon 6D Mark II, which is a directly competing cousin from the DSLR category, which is probably going to be phased out very soon. It shoots RAW and JPEG, and the RAW options are limited, basically only one option, 26 megapixel files. Not sure why Canon did that, not big deal here. I'm just saying it shoots maximum 5 frames per second. I guess Canon does not want to create a competition for other camera bodies and just limits the speed on purpose. The processor is the Digic 8, the latest and the greatest. It comes with the new Canon RF mount, which is different than all the other DSLRs, and comes with an adapter so you can use your EF and EFS lenses with it. In regards to ISO, pretty standard these days, 100 to 40,000. It performs better than the DSLR brother Canon 6D Mark II, which has bad reviews on the internet right now. The ISO performance is very good, it's fantastic, it's top of the class if you ask me, and this is what you would expect from Canon anyway. We have the fully articulated swivel screen, which folks, I know this would become the new standard, and I don't understand why others still don't do it. In regards to video, it offers a 4K cropped in 25 frames per second and a full HD 1920 by 1080p 50 frames per second. The quality of the footage is top, but there are some limitations, and we will go through that a little bit later. Canon tried to remove as many buttons as possible and reduce the amount of clutter. This came with few compromises. You have less buttons and less control, but there's other ways to compensate. The whole idea was to be small. Now, from looking at the top, we have the on and off button, which is actually a dial. We do have the hot shoe, we do have the mode dial, and we do have 2 dials for going through the menus. We do have a video designated red button, a manual function button, and the shutter. And also we have a lock lever that will lock some of the functions. Looking at the back, we do have the very high quality swivel screen, the menu button, info button, play and delete. Also we have a quick setting button in the middle of a so-called wheel, a directional through the menu that you can go up and down, left and right. We do have the autofocus on button, the start button, and the zoom button. Looking at the left of the camera, we do have a few connections. We do have a coded remote control. The bigger DSLR have remote with 3 pins. This is only 1 jack. Very interesting, we do have the microphone 3.45 jack and also the earphones, very good for the camera video shooter. We do have the standard HDMI connection, and we do have an USB. Now looking at the back, we have a tripod mount, an SD card, battery together, in a compartment, which I find it a little bit a nuisance. Not only the battery is too small and it doesn't last too long, the SD card is together with that, and every time if you have the camera on a tripod you have to remove it in order to get access to the SD card. The front of the camera is pretty standard. It has a remote sensor, infrared, and two little holes here, a very small detail. I have noticed that the sound that it records in stereo is actually a very good quality sound. If you have a stable camera and you are in the room and there's not a lot of ambient noise, you can actually get away without using a designated microphone like a shotgun or a lavalier. Now, going through the menu settings of this camera, pretty standard Canon. We're not going to go through everything, just want to point out a few things. With new additions of the Canon series. Pretty standard Canon menu. For whoever is familiar with this, you already know what's going on. So we have several tabs and sub-tabs from left to right. We have the shooting menu on the left in red, the play menu, the settings menu, we've got the custom function, and we've got the customized menu where you can select and create your own menu. Quickly going through the shooting menu, image quality 26 megapixel only in RAW. You cannot go MRAW or SRAW. Not sure why that's happening, but that's not a deal breaker. Moving on, tab number 2, tab number 3, nothing spectacular. You can select the ISO speed settings here for photo and video. Tab number 4, nothing spectacular, white balance. Tab number 5, just wanted to point out the multiple exposure function, very interesting to have. You can take several shots and they will combine them, and you see exactly how you can combine them. In camera high dynamic range mode, it will take several shots with different exposures and it will combine one picture inside the camera. So you don't need the software anymore, but we're gonna go through that in a different video. The software will give you a better result. Focus bracketing, interesting for the macro shooter. It will take bracketed focus shots and it will give you the same one picture at the end, which is pretty good if you ask me. Now this becomes standard. You can do time-lapse, automatic, and also you can set up to give you a movie file directly if you don't want to take the hundreds of photos and edit them in post-production. Pretty good again. You've got the autofocus modes, you've got the lens electronic manual focus, and you've got the manual focus picking settings. So what this does is probably imitating a little bit the Panasonic. If you set up camera in manual focus, the lens, and you start focusing, it will give you a little bit of a highlight where the lens focuses. I'm not sure if you can see there's a little bit of highlights on the edge of these glasses because they are in focus. Remember, a good thing to have for manual focus and for shooting video, obviously. Okay, moving on, last tab, movie recording settings, movie digital image stabilization, and servo autofocus. Obviously, when you turn this dial into the movie mode, you're gonna have a slightly different menu. We've got only 6 sub-tabs. We've got the play menu, nothing spectacular here. We've got the settings menu, nothing spectacular. You can format card, you can select the GPS settings and whatnot. Now the custom function, and one thing I wanted to point out, it's a very interesting thing. If we go here, we can actually assign a function to the lens. Now, it has been designed together with the camera. It comes with a third ring here, and you can assign a few functions to this ring, which are the shutter speed, aperture, and exposure compensation. An interesting feature to have, and it's probably designed to remove the clutter and have less buttons on the camera and make it smaller. Now, in regards to the performance of a camera, the best way to test it is into the worst conditions. I have taken a series of tests inside the studio, so at least I can control the environment. And the lights you see, they are not strobe lights, they are continuous lights, and they are much less than outside. So actually I can go with higher ISOs. I have compared the performance of the Canon EOS RP with the 60 Mark II. Both cameras have the same settings in terms of shutter speed, ISO and aperture. They have a similar lens. One has the 24-70 f2.8 L series from Canon and the RP has the 24-105. They are both very sharp, top of the range lenses, and I would definitely benchmark the sharpness with any other camera on the market with this configuration. So image number one. On the left hand side you see the 6D Mark II and the right hand side the RP. Very sharp, high quality images. I can't tell the difference. They're slightly different in shades, but that doesn't concern me at all. You can always modify the exposure or the white balance to suit your preferences, but today we wanted to compare absolutely apples with apples. Second picture here, we can see slightly larger difference between the exposure levels. Same settings, I had to remind you. I can see the 6D Mark II is a little bit darker, a little bit colder, and the contrast is a bit stronger. For this reason, the sharpness is a tad better. But again, the sharpness is the quality of the lens, not necessarily the sensor. Second shot, ISO 3200. The difference is getting bigger, so the Canon 6D Mark II on the left hand side is even darker in comparison with the RP. Again, that's not a deal breaker. The difference is absolutely obvious when you zoom in. The ISO performance of the 6D Mark II falls behind. You can see all these artifacts and all this noise. The Canon's RP wins this one. In conclusion, the Canon EOS RP is surclassing the 6D Mark II, and for the 26 megapixel camera is as good as it can get in terms of quality. Top quality, I don't think you can beat that at this point in time. Right, comparison between two Canons, EOS RP mirrorless camera and 6D Mark II. Both very similar, same sensor. I would expect identical quality in terms of video. I just compared the RP with the Panasonic GH5 and Canon 1 in terms of quality. Same settings for these two cameras, similar lenses. I've got the RF 24-105 at 24 millimeters and I've got a 24-70 at 24 millimeter. In terms of settings, we have on both cameras 1/100th of a second shutter speed, f5.6 and ISO 800. They are both having two little holes for the sound. I believe both of the cameras will do a very good sound without any need on top shotgun mic. I just realized that the Canon EOS does a very good job. It's gonna pick up the ambient noise. There's a lot of planes going around, so that will bother you. It bothered me. Mirrorless lens, DSLR. Now there's a lot of pros for this camera why you should buy it. It's the smallest full frame sensor camera from Canon. It's the lightest. It will make travel so much easier. You can say goodbye to the heavy DSLR bodies and the L series lenses. As a full frame sensor camera, it will give you the best quality photos out there. It's the sharpest and the ISO performance is outstanding. This comes with a standard adapter that will allow you to use entire series of lenses from Canon, the EF, EFS and the RF. The RF is designed for this specifically, and it has the third ring that allow you to take some of the functions of the camera into the lens. Using an EF lens onto the camera with the adapter will not change anything. So the focal distance stays the same. A 24mm lens will stay a 24mm lens. Interesting to note though, I was expecting for the same principle to follow with EFS lenses. I have used this lens 10-22 EFS that has a cropping factor. And if you mount it on a cropping sensor camera, instead of a 10mm focal distance, it will give you actually a 16. Now the 16 is maintained with EOS RP. I was expecting for this lens to actually achieve a 10, but it doesn't. So the cropping comes with the lens, not necessarily with the sensor. I'm not sure why that is. Maybe someone can help me with that. Now this is a camera designed more for the photos than the video. It will do the video just fine if you're not a very pretentious and high demanding video shooter. For the day-to-day video shooting, it will give you an outstanding image quality. It's still a full frame sensor and it beats all the crop sensor or the Micro Four Thirds in terms of actual quality. It doesn't have a lot of features though, it has the minimum possible. Now you still can do 4K with this, but obviously it's cropped, so if that doesn't bother you, it shouldn't be a deal breaker. The Full HD is 50 frames per second, so that will allow you to do a little bit of slow motion. It doesn't have any slow-mo footage. Surprisingly, the sound quality is very good, so you can get away without using a shotgun mic on top of it. If you are in a room just like I am right now, there's not a lot of ambient noise, you can get away without any microphone. Now, in regards to cons of this camera, now nothing is a deal breaker. There's small bits and pieces and design shortfalls that I can point out. It's just me trying to be very critical. Nothing that will convince me not to buy this camera, but let's go through some of those. In terms of raw file, you can shoot only 26 megapixels and you cannot shoot less than that. Not a biggie, but I'm just pointing it out. You have a limited battery life. The battery is quite small and it will allow you to do only about 250 shots. So if you wanna use this professionally, probably it's not a good idea, or you need to add something to it, which is the battery pack. It comes with a new RAW format, so you need to update your software. That's not necessarily a downfall, but I'm just saying it. In terms of video, if you want to use it 4K, it's gonna come with a cropping factor, and that's a little bit disappointing. I think they put the 4K just for the sake of not being criticized, but in reality it's not really a good feature and you don't have many options. One thing I don't like is actually having the SD card together with the battery, because if I mount this on a tripod, I want to pull out the SD card, I need to actually demount the camera, open the chamber, close it, and that's a little bit annoying. One design shortfall that Canon doesn't seem to get it, and that's not the case with Panasonic. If you want to use a microphone on top of your camera, the jack is in the way of the swivel screen, so that will restrict a little bit of the motion. Not a biggie, but Panasonic did a far superior job moving it out of the way. If you use one of these Canon RC1 remote controls that can work on any DSLR, it doesn't work on this one. Another feature I'm not really impressed is I do not have the option to turn on and off the viewfinder. So it has a sensor here. If I put it on my face, it's all fine. The viewfinder turns on so I can see the footage through the viewfinder. The problem is if I mount this on a Zion stabilizer, you have some parts which are coming closer to the back of the camera and it will turn off the LCD screen. That means if I'm using this with a Zion stabilizer, I do not know what I'm shooting. None of these cons are actually deal breakers, but I just wanted to point them out because there's still a little bit of design that Canon needs to do. Just a short conclusion, even if I listed few compromises already, this is an outstanding camera to have. The price point is fair for what it is, and from my perspective this is the best way to enter the full frame sensor market and future-proof your purchase. Outstanding quality, I'm sure this matches the highest and the most expensive DSLRs in the regards to photos. A lot of missing video features. This camera is probably better for photography than video, but still you can do an awesome job even if you need to add a few accessories. Obviously you need to consider what's most important feature for you before investing money. I hope you enjoyed this review. Please give us a like and subscribe and the whole shebang, as all the YouTubers are begging you to do so. I guess I'll see you in one of the next videos, which I'm gonna go a comparison with the 60 Mark II, and also I want to review the RF lens separately.
On a different note today, I would like to remind people that I intend to rebrand this channel from Academy of Photography into Christian Tudor. As I was advised by some smart people, rebranding is not something that can be done overnight. It will take a period of transition, probably 6 months to a year, and I'm gonna keep repeating the message for all the videos upcoming in the next foreseeable future.